Welcome back, everyone, to the Bitcoin Business Bureau. I'm your host, as always, LitecoinLeader. Today, I wanted to have some real talk with you about credit and finances. And this is not financial advice. This is just one guy talking on the internet, sharing his opinion and thoughts. But I've seen a lot of videos, and I just saw another one from Joe Brown over at Heresy Financial. Hopefully I can remember to link it up here, but it's extremely popular. It's not hard to find. If you can spell Heresy Financial, you can find it. So what Joe was talking about was like the credit crunch, and that so many people are in credit up to their eyeballs. They're like 40% of people have been in credit for at least a year that they've owed, like they just revolving credit, just trying, haven't paid off their balances. They're just making payments. And yeah, that's not great because you're paying high interest. But what I'm here to tell you is like, and I hear a lot of people say, like from Economic Ninja to a whole bunch of other people, get out of debt, get out, whatever you can, get out of debt. And I'm going to provide a counterpoint to that. This is, again, not financial advice, but just a thought. And that is, what if that your debts, if your debts are fixed, let's just say, like, let's just call it a mortgage. Okay. Say you have a 5% mortgage. Well, your debt is 5%. Yes, you owe somebody 5%, but a mortgage is actually a tax benefit for a number of people. Let's say you have a credit card. Let's say you have a credit card balance at 12%, okay, and 1% a month. I'm going to provide a counter argument to you, which is that if you say you have $5,000 you owe on that card now, and you have $5,000 in the bank. Now you have options here. You can keep the $5,000 in the bank, probably not preferred because we all know that the dollar is garbage. Cash is not king anymore. That's just a saying. It only comes when when you're in a marketplace where people are only like doing transactions like a flea market or just, person to person. Cash can be king because there are no credit card swipers there. Unless you're bartering, cash is king in that environment. But in most environments, cash is no longer king because cash loses its buying power every single day. We see it through the inflation. We see it at the gas station. We see it at the grocery store. Everywhere we go, prices of things are going up and they're not going down. Like once in the last year, I've seen something go down in price, which I was shocked at. I couldn't believe it. But for the most part, cash is no longer king. So you have $5,000 in this example. You have $5,000 in the bank, and you have $5,000 of credit card debt at 12%. You have a couple of options. You can take all that money and pay off some or all of that debt, and then you can feel good about it. But now you don't have that cash. You have nothing to fall back on. But if let's just say you did have something to fall back on, would you choose to take that $5,000 and extinguish a 12% fixed rate debt, or would you move some or all of that currency into another dimension of holdings? Another element of holdings, another method of holdings, like buy an asset. Okay. I'm not going to say if it's Bitcoin. I'm not going to say if it's silver, gold, or even an income producing real estate property. I'm not going to say which one of those, but let's just say you did. Okay. You can make an argument that even if you're servicing that debt and you're paying basically 1% a month, because it's 12% interest, 1% a month on a $5,000 debt, that's $50 a month in interest. Okay. You're probably paying 2 or 3 times that for your payment. Let's just say you're paying $100 a month. Would you rather pay the $100 a month? And yes, you're paying 50% of it as interest. And so $50 of interest, or would you rather gamble, or would you rather invest that money? Again, not financial advice, but would you take that currency, not money, those dollars, these little things, these pieces of green paper, would you rather take those and exchange them for something of value? It could be a silver coin or several silver coins. It could be some of this Bitcoin, another alternative currency or altcoin, collectible, precious art. Maybe it's a down payment on a car you think is going to be worth more money in the future. That's the thing, is that if you think it's going to be worth more in the future than it is now, and it will outpace your interest on your debt, maybe that debt is not worth servicing and extinguishing. It's just something to think about. Now, I understand that there's other things, there's karmic things and emotional things about being out of debt. I get that. I totally get that. But we're in a strange time. There's no question we're in a strange financial time. And Now, there's been talk of debt jubilees. There's been talk of Nassar and Jassar and all those different elements, or Trumpsar, or whatever you want to call it. All these different words that they throw out there for extinguishing debt, possibly. Do you want to bank on it? No. No pun intended. But it's quite possible. It is feasible where, due to inflation, that, what used to cost one of these is going to cost one of these very soon. In that environment, okay, let's say that same $5,000. Oh, well. Let's just say you have that $5,000 debt. Well, that $5,000, let's just say $5,000, and I'm going to translate that into silver, okay? $5,000 today, let's say I'm going to say it's about, let's see, $3,300 would buy about 100 silver eagles. Let's say you could buy 150 silver eagles with $5,000, roughly speaking, okay? If silver were to take off, it would be $50. Now you'd have 150 of those. Now you have an asset that's worth 7,500 US dollars, and you translate that $5,000 into an asset now it's worth $7,500. Now you could extinguish that debt at that point if you wanted to, and you still have 25 of those dollars left over. 2,500. You'd have 50% left over. So it's just something to think about. Is like, if when in the strange financial times, do you want to service a debt at a fixed rate? But if you think that in inflation of assets, appreciation of assets, the assets are going to outpace your debt service, it may be worth considering just investing versus extinguishing a debt. Again, not financial advice, just something to think about. Because I know a lot of people are saying, kill debt, crush debt, get debt free. You don't want to be in a debt situation, but that's that's like, so if you're in something that is in a debt that can change with the interest rates, it's not a fixed debt. It is a variable rate. Let's just say it's 5% over whatever the prime rate is, or 10% over the prime rate. So at the prime rate now, if the prime rate's 4.5%, it's 10% over. Now you're at 14.5%. But if the prime rate all of a sudden goes to 20%, now you're paying 30%. That's not good. But if you're in fixed debt, fixed numbers, maybe, just maybe, you can be in an appreciating asset that will outpace the inflation and the debt service that you will need. An extreme example. Let's just take an extreme example. That $5,000 debt. Inflation goes out of control. We get into hyperinflation. Dollars just go crazy. And all of a sudden, a cup of coffee is $5,000. Well, that's an entirely different environment. And those dollars are virtually worthless, which means your debt is virtually negligible. So that is where I would think that's how a jubilee of debt, or a debt forgiveness, some kind of extinguishing event for debt. That's basically how I could see it happening, is if the dollar's value and purchasing power just goes through the floor, much like what I dropped, and you can't buy anything with these Federal Reserve notes. Like if this Federal Reserve note, if this is the equivalent of a penny, can you imagine that environment? Well, we got $5,000 debt. If that $5,000 debt now, it feels like $100 instead of $5,000. Are you going to be happy that you paid off that $5,000 debt, or are you going to be sad? So this is where, like, your future self needs to communicate to your present self. And yes, we need to learn from the past, but I think we're in a different time than we've anyone alive has ever seen. With a world currency is basically dying, and that is really changing things. And now, what would happen overnight? No, probably not. Could it happen in a short time frame where you're going to wish that you hadn't serviced all your debt and maybe bought an asset instead? Quite possibly. So something to think about. And these are the alternative ways to think that we're sharing this week. This is the alternative way of thinking that we're sharing for our Texas event. And that's happening this Saturday. You can attend live or virtually. There's still virtual tickets. There's still both types of tickets available. Both tickets either tickets under $200. So, and the workbook is ready. We'll be sharing that, all that good stuff. We'll live stream the event if you can't attend physically, which I completely understand if you don't feel comfortable traveling. Lots of people don't right now. It's a strange time. I get it, but we're here to educate you so you're prepared and not scared. So you learn at this event. We really hope to see you there in one way or another. But for all that said, I'm going to close the door on the bureau. Say file leader one more time, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.